Hey everybody, this is Hercules Petix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the Hercules Petix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at What If number 3, What If the Avengers Had Never Been. This comic came out in the spring of 1977, and my brother collected What If at the time, so I would read his copies, and I was 9 years old. And I remember this comic hit me really hard. It's kind of got an emotional heft to it that your average Marvel comic didn't have at the time. The thing is What If were out of continuity. They were non-canonical. So due to that, they could do anything to the characters, and it wouldn't have, long-standing repercussions. It wouldn't ruin the IP, of these characters. So a lot of the What Ifs did end up kind of tragic. They had tragic endings. And this one is definitely no exception. This one actually, really kind of made me sad as a kid. I was just like, oh, man. I was a little bereft reading this comic. But that was odd at the time. Most comics I read were just two guys punching each other for most of the issue, trading quips while they kicked and punched each other. And this was actually made me feel some emotion. The pencils on the cover and the interiors are by Gil Kane. This is the time when Gil Kane was drawing like half of Marvel's covers, and they're all beautifully designed. He's one of the great cover artists of comics history, mainstream comics history. His covers are look at this. If you're 9 years old, this is everything you want. I mean, how could you not pick this up off the stands if you saw this cover? The cover is inked by Joe Sinnott, so it has a very classic Marvel look to it. The insides, however, is a whole new kettle of fish, inked by Klaus Janson. If you guys are familiar with Klaus Janson, he's the kind of inker who totally subsumes the penciler that he's inking. He basically makes any penciler, he makes their art look like Klaus Janson art once he's done inking it. In the 70s, that was a great thing. He would improve on the art because Klaus Janson was probably one of the best inkers back then. And later on, though, it became almost the opposite. He would ruin pencils all the time. Every time he put his ink quill to the page. But look at this, how nice this looks. The Gil Kane dynamic layouts, but then the slick polish of Klaus Janson's inks. But you look at that there, though. This could be Keith Pollard and Klaus Janson. This could be any number of pencilers, but it ends up looking like Klaus Janson. And throughout the 70s, he was really heavy-handed with his inks. So the shtick of What If is that the narrator is Uatu the Watcher. And he basically, every issue tells the reader that there's a myriad of infinite dimensions out there, alternate realities. In the Marvel Universe, things went this way. But in another dimension, due to a small change, maybe they went this way. And that's the premise of every issue. And the writer is Jim Shooter on this. And this is before Jim Shooter was editor-in-chief. He was just assistant editor and writing for Marvel. But he co-plots it with Gil Kane, which is kind of rare. Gil Kane contributing to the story. That didn't happen often. And of course, Klaus Janson inks, like I said. Archie Goodwin was the editor-in-chief back then for 6 months, I think. So we start off with this pivotal scene in Avengers history. After the first 2 issues, I think, the Hulk angrily storms off and says, screw you guys, I'm out of here. And the Avengers basically made it their mission to get the Hulk back, just because they knew he was such a danger. They're like, we got to get him back in the Avengers so we can keep an eye on him. So, in the Marvel Universe, they try to subdue him. He escaped, and he met up with Namor, the Submariner. And due to their mutual hatred of humanity, they teamed up and fought the Avengers to a standstill. Kind of a inconclusive battle. The Hulk ends up escaping anyway. Namor goes swimming back to Atlantis. But this was their trial by fire. It kind of solidified the Avengers as a working superhero team. So now Uatu comes back in and basically says, but I'm going to show you another dimension where things didn't work that way. So we see the Avengers about to head out and haul the Hulk back into the fold. And Giant Man says, this is the point of departure here. He has a thought in his head. He says, wait a second, guys. Let's hold on a minute. You know, we didn't take an oath when we joined the Avengers. We can't force the Hulk to be in the Avengers. So let's think about this. And it kind of starts this debate between all the characters. And this is the thing, like Jim Shooter at the time, he wrote some of the most quirkiest Marvel stories, some of the most interesting superhero stories at the time. He would always inject a little like weird adult element into his comics that most writers did not. And so I always enjoyed his comics. They were always not what you'd expect. They'd always have a weird twist where you're like, whoa, I never saw that in a superhero comic before. But he also would do that crappy thing of like having just nonsense dialogue and motivations just to get the plot moving. So this is an example. In 4 panels, somehow Giant Man just saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't get the Hulk, leads to these guys totally arguing with each other and yelling at each other and throwing acrimony at each other so much that Thor takes off and says, nuts to you guys. I'm going back to Asgard. And then Giant Man is just like, oh man, without Thor and the Hulk, we're not really the mighty Avengers, are we? Maybe I'm going to go back to just being a scientist. I've always kind of had a, complex about not being good enough to be in the group anyway. And of course, the Wasp agrees. She doesn't really care. By the way, Jim Shooter, just the writing for the Wasp and Giant Man, their relationship is like, the Wasp just says something and Giant Man will just be like, quiet, Janet, this is serious. Everything she says, he just kind of says, shut up, bitch. He's a shitty husband. So Giant Man and Wasp leave, and Iron Man is left all alone. So he's sulking around Avengers Mansion, which of course is owned by Tony Stark. And he gets a call from Rick Jones, the Hulk's best friend. And I guess that he's being endangered by the Hulk. Even though the Hulk loves Rick Jones, sometimes he gets so enraged and just so blinded by hate that he will attack his friends. Here's an example of where I don't like Klaus Janson's heavy-handed inks. He ended up with really goofy faces like that. It just looks very odd. So Iron Man gets the call from Rick Jones, and he flies out, and he battles the Hulk. Look at this just fun Gil Kane layouts. Just such fun superhero, storytelling and fight choreography. Very dynamic. But the Hulk escapes again, just runs off after nearly cracking Iron Man's armor open. Look at that nice zipatone. Klaus Janson always went the extra 10 yards. So Iron Man flies back to the mansion with Rick. Meanwhile, the Hulk and Namor are having their meeting, and they form their alliance. Even though both of them are just thinking, "Oh man, as soon as I get the chance, I'm gonna kick the shit out of this guy." they're basically two bastards. So they call up Iron Man with their challenge, and this is another example of just nonsense motivation and or dialogue. Iron Man basically bluffs and just says, okay, we'll be there. Because, of course, Namor and Hulk asked for the Avengers to show up. And then Iron Man thinks to himself, couldn't tell him the Avengers don't exist anymore. He would have interpreted as cowardice. It's like, who cares? It's like, it just serves no purpose to lie to them and show up by himself. He could just say, the Avengers are gone, but I'll show up to meet you. It's just really dumb. But it is some really nice Klaus Janson ink in there. Using more patterns. Some kind of zipatone, I think. And so Iron Man realizes he can't face these two guys by himself. So he comes up with a plan. Pretty good plan, actually. He makes 3 suits of Iron Man type armor for Rick Jones, Henry Pym, and Janet Van Dyne. He calls them up, says, guys, I really got to talk to you. And he tells them the plan. So they all get in their outfits. Iron Man gives them instructions on how to operate the armor. But then they all are totally bamboozled by it. The Wasp starts flying around. She lost control. Then Rick Jones is flapping his arms like a bird. And Iron Man's getting really pissed off. He's kind of being a dick. He's just like, no. What are you guys, stupid? I told you how to use this shit. What are you doing? And he's just basically insulting them. And Iron Man's getting more and more short with them. So the Wasp flies off crying. She says, she calls him a tin-plated tyrant. She says, I'm out of here. And of course, Henry leaves with the Wasp, chases after her. And then Rick Jones says, I always wanted to be a superhero, but I don't think this is going to work. I think I'm out of here too. So once again, Iron Man's left alone. And he decides, well, the job's got to be done. So he charges himself with more electricity than he's ever charged himself with before. He almost overloads his circuits, but he's going to be stronger than ever before. And of course, he's got a little bit of reserve for his chest plate, because as we all know, Tony Stark is a bum ticker, and without the chest plate, he'll die. So he flies off. Meanwhile, Rick Jones, I guess, has a change of heart. God, look at that, just crazy bad anatomy there. I don't know what's going on with his body. But Rick Jones chases after Giant Man and the Wasp and says, guys, we got to help out Tony, He's flying off, probably to his own death. We got to try to help him. Let's go back. So meanwhile, we see Iron Man finding the Hulk and Namor, and he attacks. And things are about to get real here. This is some wicked shit. So the Hulk is totally taken aback. He's like, never felt his repulsor rays that strong, because they never have been. So Iron Man's doing pretty good. And within the first minute, he takes out Namor. Namor's trapped under all these boulders that Iron Man tricked him into flying into. Then the Hulk does a counterattack. Look at these, just these Gil Kane poses. They're just so dynamic. The anatomy and the positions of the bodies. And then he lures the Hulk into this pond and zaps him, fries him. Look at this fucking page. This is a total poster to go on your bedroom wall, That is awesome. With the dynamic pose of the Hulk here and the great Klaus Janson inks. That's just quite a pinup. So now he takes out the Hulk. The Hulk's down for the count for a little. But right then, Submariner breaks out of his rock prison and starts wailing on Iron Man again and knocks him right into the ocean. So as we all know, Namor is stronger underwater. And Iron Man's like, oh shit, I'm fucked. So Namor slugs him right out of the ocean onto this little island. Look at this nice Zipatone water effect. I love this weird panel here. It's just all this negative space of this deep blue. This is obviously before those Marvel started using the flexographic plastic presses, when everything started looking like shit on newsprint. And it looks like Iron Man's out. His helmet is shattered. There's stuff coming out of it. And Namor and Hulk almost are regretful. They're like, yeah, he was valiant. At one point, he'd beaten us both. And Namor says there's little honor in this victory. But then they hear the Iron Man's jets, the sound of Iron Man's jets. And the other Avengers show up, the Iron Avengers. And the Wasp throws these needles or shoots these needles into Namor's head, and they basically make him groggy and dizzy. Even though I just complained about comics that just have 20 pages of fight scenes, this stuff is pretty wicked because it has like actual life and death consequences behind it. So apparently Rick Jones has the power due to his armor to become immaterial like the Vision. Just seems kind of silly. If you had that technology, you could change the world, but he just gives it to Rick Jones for his stupid Iron Man armor. And they're all doing pretty good, and they're fighting. Giant Man's holding his own against the Hulk even. And then Namor, he's really feeling bad, but he makes it to the shore, and he jumps in the ocean, and the water invigorates him and clears his head, and he swims back up to the surface to kick some ass. Meanwhile, Giant Man is he's got a finite amount of power in a suit, and the Hulk, as he gets angrier, he gets stronger. So the tide of battle turns, and the Hulk starts getting the best of Giant Man. And he knocks him down so hard he's totally unconscious. Iron Man recognizes that basically the armor's weight, it'll keep him from breathing. And he needs more energy for his suit. So with his last bit of strength, Iron Man crawls over to Giant Man, puts his hand on his chest plate, and pumps all of his electricity into Giant Man, even his reserve energy for his heart. So he sacrifices himself. He collapses, and Giant Man stands up once again, completely reinvigorated and super strong with all that electricity. And he starts wailing on the Hulk, beating the crap out of him. Meanwhile, Namor is going after Rick Jones, and he's beating the crap out of Rick Jones, and he punches him so hard, Rick Jones is heading towards this mountain, this outcrop of rocks. Look at that, as far as just like impact, superhero comic impact. And the Hulk looks over and sees Rick Jones heading to his doom. So he stops fighting and leaps and cushions Rick Jones' cushions him so he doesn't die. And then he says, "Namor, you dirty flat-headed scum, I'll kill you for this. He's just a kid, you try to kill him." There's another one of those Klaus Janson faces. Goofy. And Namor and Hulk start fighting. And it's quite a fight. Two of the strongest guys on Earth. The fight leads them underwater. So Namor kind of has the advantage. But once again, the Hulk is so angry that he keeps getting stronger. And eventually it's a stalemate. Namor swims away, saying that there's no purpose in this. Everything's ruined. And the Hulk swims away because he needs oxygen. And we won't see them again for a while. And then we cut back to the shore. And we see all of the three Iron Avengers with their helmets off and mourning. And we see a dead Tony Stark. Really dead. And this is the kind of shit, I'm 9 years old. I was just like, what? You can't do that. It really hit me hard. It was quite emotional. So, there you go. What if number 3? We have the letter page, Why Not? I always thought that was kind of a clever name for What If's letter page. And comments on What If number 1, which is also a pretty damn fun issue. So that's it, guys. What If number 3? Not the greatest comic you're ever going to read, but this is never leaving the Academy on my watch because, man, the nostalgic feelings I have for this comic. And I gotta say, looking at it again, some of this Kane Janson art is really nice. And it's, and I gotta say, for a superhero comic in 77, the stories definitely a little more interesting than your average, Marvel 2-in-1 issue or something like that. Because Jim Shooter always added that. Jim Shooter, not the greatest man, but do like his writing. He's a unique writer, and you never really know where his stories are going to go. So, like the Korvac saga, the run on the Avengers where Yellow Jackets started beating up the Wasp. Just crazy stuff he throws in his comics. It's always quite interesting. So hope you guys enjoyed looking at it today, and I hope to see you soon. Next time here at the Hercules Petix Academy of Comic Book Studies.